am so excited to be here, and I just love being on this show as the foremost expert on the Kendrick Drake beef, of which I have heard so much.
I'ma get $1 million in.
What up, y'all? I'm Torre, and this is Rap Latte.
And I am King Green, and this is deeper conversations about hip hop. And who do we have here today, Toure?
We have a special guest, a superstar, an A-lister, a legendary stand-up comedian, actress, writer, Kathy Griffin, probably the funniest redhead in America. How are you?
I'll take it. I am so excited to be here, and I just love being on this show as the foremost expert on the Kendrick Drake beef, of which I have heard so much detail. Can't even wait to share it.
Well, we would love to hear all your deepest thoughts about Kendrick and Drake and the halftime show and everything. You have a YouTube show.
Now, which one
you
was
just started
NSYNC?
yesterday.
Which one was in Backstreet Boys?
Neither was in fact. You have a YouTube show now.
Yes, I do. It's called Kathy Griffin Talk Your Head Off. And I don't have any guests yet. I just started my first one, and I have 3 in the can, and it's just me popping off into the camera. But I do have a wig head as my guest host, and I've been known to do things with wig heads before, so tune in.
Now,
That's true.
You're not a fish out of water in hip hop because your best friend ASAP Rocky and you got along.
Excuse me.
Like
best friend, he wishes. He's someone who's in love with me. He is, I don't want to use the word obsessed. He is using a girl named Rihanna as a distraction to try to keep him from running into my loving arms in a field slow motion style. And I can't help the magnetism I enable.
did anything ever happen there?
I fucked that guy down to the nub. Right down to the nub. I mean, I don't know what he's got left. He is spent. I drained that noodle like you have no idea. Back was hurting. I had to pay for rehab. It's ridiculous. He cried 3 times. 3 times. So no, I never did anything except he did my talk show on Bravo, and then he said, I have a web show. And I was like, what? What the hell's a web show? I'm a star. And it was called Back and Forth. And to this day, I get a big kick out of when people discover it because he just came over to my house. He brought his entire crew, which is funny because I don't even have one. And there's a guy he travels with whose name is Dash. Now, maybe not his government name, but it was his name that day. And when Rocky, he wants to be called Rocky. When Rocky and I were on the couch making sweet, sweet love to each other, Dash would be on my balcony, out of the side of the camera, yelling, I'm on top of the world, Ma! I'm on top of the world! Which is very cute. And so I am an A$AP Rocky fan.
I did get the vibe from that moment that you authentically thought this is a really sexy, beautiful man.
Oh, he's a sexy, beautiful man. I don't care who he shot. Allegedly. Innocent.
Oh, wild.
Innocent.
Wow.
I believe. And, and I feel that he shot an arrow through my heart that day. And I think Rihanna is very threatened by me.
That's funny because that's why that moment of you ASAP, and I think was Schoolboy there too, or was just you and ASAP? But that moment of you and ASAP was
Schoolboy was on my talk show, but only ASAP came to the house with Dash.
I got you. So that moment was so pivotal around there and during that blog era. Like we all watched that. Like everybody in hip hop watched that interview.
Yeah,
and it was just hilarious. Like. But we definitely got that.
You took over that moment.
You know who DM'd me and asked if I really fucked him? Shaquille O'Neal, the basketball star.
Yeah. We understand who Shaquille O'Neal is.
Shaquille O'Neal, the basketball star.
As opposed to very
the
successful.
world leader.
By the way, I did a commercial with him back in the day when he was on the, I think, Orlando something. I don't remember.
The Magic.
Anyway,
Yes.
it was
Magic.
yeah. Yes. It was a Nike ad, and it ran during the Super Bowl. And I was playing an aerobics instructor, and Shaq was to pick me up and carry me on to a different part of the set. It was like a spoof of Forrest Gump, but with Shaquille O'Neal. And so every time he picked me up, I would give him shit just because I thought he was such a young guy. And I can't resist giving guys like that shit, like big, rich, imposing guys. So it got so bad, so mad at me that the director, Joe Pitka, had to come up to the two of us at one point when I'm in Shaq's arms and go, "She's a comic! She's a comic! She's a
What
comic!"
were you saying?
I was like, "What do you do for a living? Why don't you go get a job at the mall and make yourself useful?" I mean, whatever I could think, it just was flying out of me. I couldn't resist. And we had take after take until the director was like, "She's a comic! She's a comic!" And then you literally decades later, he's like, "Hey, it's Shaquille O'Neal. Did you really fuck ASAP Rocky?" And I go, "Duh, who didn't?" And then we did for a minute, and so I now consider him a close friend.
That's
Did you
great.
Did you let him know?
He went on to play
if
for
you
other basketball teams, by the way. He did very well for himself.
He did pretty good. Did you let Rocky know, like, hey, I'm not kidding. Like, if you want to hang out, you could stay.
No, I let him know on no uncertain terms that he could never get this, that he could wish for it. He will dream about it and still does. But I had to just keep, I'm playing him for a few decades. I play a long game, a very long. I'm 64. I mean a long game.
Super long game.
So, all right, game. I want to know what the Super Bowl halftime show looked like in Kathy Griffin's brain, and like how you received it and what you understood, what you didn't understand, and what you thought of it.
Okay, are we going to act like you didn't just say Kathy Gifford? Are we playing that game?
Griffin. No, Kathy Griffin's brain. Kathy Griffin's brain.
If you cut this out, I will find you.
I don't give a fuck about Kathy Gifford. That is, I don't even thought of Kathy Gifford.
Who is?
5 years.
Rewind the tape. Rewind.
We'll rewind the tape.
No, it's just about. I'm not even thinking of Kathy Gifford.
By the way, I just want you to know you think about Kathy Gifford way too much, and that's something between you and your Lord. But I was name checked in both Trump impeachment trials as Kathy Lee Griffin, so I'm used to it. Now, when I watched the Super Bowl halftime show, I watched it the next day because I don't care about football, or as I call it, rape ball. And so I thought, let's see what the fuss is all about. And I have seen Kendrick Lamar perform live, and that's because as a 6-time Grammy nominee for Best Comedy Album, 1-time winner, thank you, one of only 4 women to win the Grammy for Best Comedy Album in the history of Grammys. Okay, and so I was sitting next to my friend Stevie Nicks, perhaps you've heard of her, and her ex, and then Kendrick Lamar performed, and I didn't know the song, but he blew the roof off the place. And of all people, Stevie Nicks turned to me and she goes, "Note to self, don't ever follow Kendrick Lamar." And so I can
when
say,
he was in chains doing the prison thing.
Legend and legends supporting legends. And so even though I didn't know his music then, being in the presence of his performance was so shocking and electric that is the shocking part isn't what I thought about the halftime show, but even through my white lady lens, who, like I said, knows way more about Celine Dion than I should, you can feel the magic and the electricity. And I then put on my Spotify, you can do a thing that's just Kendrick's halftime show. So I'm starting out with the halftime show, then I'll broaden it out to all Kendrick all the time.
I've part of what I loved about what Kendrick did is I thought it was very Black centric. It was a conversation that we understood and it was meant for us, and it wasn't aimed at you. And I think that offended a lot of white people about something at the Super Bowl that's not for us. Like, how could that be?
No,
It should be
I
for
love
us.
that, but I also want to credit you for pointing that out, because not that I had thought that. All I thought was, I wish I knew his songs better. But you're right. I think it's revelatory that there was an entire performance aimed at Black people, not to diss the Compton, Dr. Dre, Eminem, Mary J. Blige extravaganza, which was also amazing. And I love how they showed the street and all that. But I think your point is so well taken and so necessary.
Very much. And it's not dissing the Compton one, right? Because it's like those things are such staples in hip hop that they're just it's part of the American canon. It's not about, no one felt like Dr. Dre should not be at the Super. He's Dr. Dre. We all know and love Dr. Dre. Whereas this is current hip hop. This is now. This is someone who's just got into his legendary bag and status, which I just love that story you just told about Stevie Nicks, because I love Stevie Nicks. And to hear for her to be able to see that performance, which I thought was a great Grammy performance, and her even to see that and know a great performance like that, that's beautiful.
And mention it to me and Iovine.
Yeah, it's like, yay, watch out for this guy.
What do you know? What do you think about the Drake Kendrick battle?
Oh boy. Okay, here we go. I'm guessing that I know he was on a kid's show called Degrassi. I don't know if it was called Degrassi Show or The Reunion. I think he was in a wheelchair. So that was progressive. And I think it was Canadian, because I know he's Canadian. When I play Toronto, everyone I meet there feels compelled to tell me like Drake's favorite restaurant, Vancouver. He's a Vancouver guy. Or is
Toronto.
he
I think it's Toronto. He's Toronto.
Okay. Yeah. So they'll say there's the neighborhood Drake lives. And so there's a lot of Toronto pride. So I know that. I remember when my niece Claire was in high school and she was giving me a lecture on why he's a genius. So when I reminded her of that, she didn't remember. So I thought that was weird. Then I know that I've been following the beef on TikTok, and from what I can ascertain, Kendrick is the clear winner, but Drake is not going down without a fight. But what I don't understand, just as a bit of a rebel in Hollywood myself, is, does this mean that we're rooting for like the music conglomerate world of the labels and the what I understand to be quite corrupt industry? Like I said, if I'm one of only 4 women to win the Grammy for Best Comedy Album, that's a pretty fucking misogynistic agency. So am I cheering for Sony Music now? Like, I'm not sure who I'm cheering for.
What do you mean by that? You're saying that Kendrick represents the music and the record industry?
Isn't Drake some big entity?
Yeah, Drake's suing UMG for defamation.
Okay, so if I'm pro Kendrick, if I'm pro Drake, does that mean I have to be pro Universal?
No. You said it the right way the first time.
That's an interesting question, because Kendrick would say yes, because Kendrick's point in the battle was, you are industry, you are commerce, I am art and authenticity. Okay,
is Kendrick on an indie label?
He has his own label. He has his own label under Interscope.
He's
not fully independent.
He's not really independent. He's signed. He's under the same label umbrella as Drake.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that makes it complicated for me, because I'm more of like an anti-establishment. I'm a low budget, non-union. Unfortunately, nobody would ever let me do a union show. I'm taping my own special Saturday night in Seattle because of my Trump head picture. Every one of those conglomerates are still, this is their word, squeamish about me. And so I think I have that kind of internal question going on, which is maybe less about music. And it seems unusual that an artist like Drake would even side with Universal, and Kendrick would not maybe take himself away from Interscope altogether?
Well, it's
Well,
more of
Sorry.
like an 80. I could break down the business real quick.
let me pose it back to you in this way, Kathy, because you understand that you have your own opinions about industry. You've gotten pretty high in Hollywood and in comedy on your own, so you must understand the game. Kendrick represents the authenticity that we would generally put with an indie artist, but
Okay.
he is utilizing the power of the industry to promote his stuff. So, like the
Does
Super
he
Bowl
own
performance.
does he own his library yet?
Catalog? No, he
Yeah.
doesn't own. He owns the catalog that right now. Just to break down the business in very layman terms, Drake is under UMG, and they own all of his masters still. Right? Own all his catalog.
Yeah,
Kendrick.
that I don't like. Just so you know, that is, I'm not a Swiftie, but that one thing she did about getting the catalog back is true. I bought my catalog back from NBC Universal. I own all the episodes of Kathy Griffin, My Life on the D List, all 6 seasons, my Kathy Talk Show, and all 21 of my specials.
That's
Um,
dope.
It's definitely bold when also I bought them all back and then literally nobody wanted to buy them. So I kind of can't wait to croak. But I think I'm more interested in that part of it. Like, I want them both to have ownership of their catalog. And I don't want us to get distracted by whatever their beef may be, because I don't want the guys upstairs to be the real winners.
I agree with that 100%. The beef is its own thing. I always try to tell people, like, the beef is a competitive, hip hop's a competitive sport, and that has to do with two individuals trying to claim market share within a culture. So that's different than the business side, which Kendrick was on a major label, like regular signed deal. And then actually, no, someone else's label that was under the major label. And then he moved himself from that label, which he's still cool with, and created his own independent label that has a basically most likely an 80-20 split with the big majors. So he owns his
But
catalog.
he had enough juice to do it at the time, correct?
Exactly.
But Kathy,
Yeah, see, my issue is artists that don't have the juice to do it have to wait until they are at that level when it shouldn't be happening from day one.
Can an artist represent ideals and ideas around independence, anti-capitalism, whatever, revolution, whatever, but also be in the system? Like, is that hypocrisy, or can you use the
That's
system
not my experience. It's in show business. It's no. You have to kiss the ring to a degree, no matter who you are, no matter how good you are. And it's also, I would imagine, when you say that rap is very, very competitive, would you say that, like many other areas of music, there's kind of a perception, if not true, of a finite number of rappers that could achieve Drake, Kendrick level of fame?
100%. There is this perception that there's only room for one when there's literal thousands of rappers definitely making different sorts of money. Drake was the biggest cash cow and the media darling and the one that everyone put money behind, and that's why you get a Drake, because you, like you said, you have to kiss the ring. You kiss the ring, you're gonna get the money to support you, right? The interesting thing,
I know from watching Hooray that there is literally no such thing as a hit song without payola, even to this day. Is that true?
3,000%. A form of it. A form of it. Is it payola in the old ways? No, because there's different avenues. But you can't get popping without money. Period.
Is there payola in comedy?
Yes, and I'm sorry to tell you that it's going to shock you, but it's still as bad as it was when I was coming up. And luckily, I never had to do this because I started out doing stand-up in coffee houses and doing it for free for so long. I didn't get to play a club until I already was on a television show as an actress. But the payola for female comics is tragic. And it is blowjobs with the door guy. It's blowjobs with the owner. It's bad. I'm just telling you, it's really bad out there for comics. And that's another reason I flex a lot, because I want the girls to see, look, I haven't had the easiest path. And that doesn't mean that if you see a successful comedian, she had to trade sex for it. But the amount of that still goes on, and I don't know if it's worth in sort of the heartland. Because remember, I go to the real America, you guys. I live in Malibu, and I do better on the East Coast, but I certainly go to the real America. And my guess is that sort of thing is even more prevalent in the heartland, and it's incredibly depressing. So that's a
Really?
form of bipolar. And then once you get to the upper levels, you have a little more juice. But I can tell you, my team is all old white guys. Like they're like my age. And I demanded a female, a representative, and both my agency just said we don't have one. They don't even have one. And my managers have two. One didn't want me, and the other one was literally just off a desk and just didn't have experience enough. They only had two in the whole company. So the misogyny I deal with is still out there, and even talking about it here is going to get me in more trouble.
All right, let's change subjects then. I don't want to get you in trouble, but I do want to hear you talk about, you have a very tiny but unforgettable role in what might be the greatest movie of the modern era, Pulp Fiction. And I bet some people
carried that film. I carried that film. My 3 lines are why it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes.
So wait, how did you end
movie.
up in this little? Because when Bruce Willis, some people may not remember, when Bruce Willis is escaping from where they were holding the GIMP, and he runs into Ving Rhames, crashes into him, and then Kathy appears to help Ving Rhames when he is injured, right? After getting run over by like that was crazy.
I can do that all day. If you need somebody to go testify in court for you, I will. Which guy? Him.
Right. And then you send us back into this incredible chase scene.
Well, I was seeing Tarantino at the time. Tarantino at the time. Never slept with him.
Really? You were his girlfriend at the time?
Yes.
How long were you together?
You can put the shock off your face for like 5 seconds. Jesus Christ.
No. Not like you can't get Quentin
You think
Tarantino.
A$AP Rocky was the first man to become obsessed with me? Wake up, Mary. No, but I was hanging out with him, and I am actually in 3 Tarantino projects. His ill-fated 4 Rooms, in which I had the largest role of the 3 things that he let me be in, and I blame myself for its demise. He directed an episode of ER, and I got to be in that. And then, of course, the 3 lines in Pulp Fiction, which are just fun because they're 3 lines. I take all the credit. But let me tell you, that rap party, done with production and all the stars go. I mean, if I could be at that party still, I'd be in a diaper at that party.
When you're hearing, I mean, you're hanging out with him as he's writing this legendary picture. Are you hearing scenes? He's telling you, Kathy, we're going to do this and this and this, and you're going, holy shit, that sounds incredible. Or you're like, yeah, we'll see if you can pull that off.
I can't believe you asked me that, because one of the best things about seeing him is he would call me at all hours of the night, and I'm a night owl as well, and he would read scenes that he had just written. And the part that was the most shocking was that when he invited me to the crew screening, almost not a word was changed. Like it was almost exactly the same as I remember him reading me. Not the whole script, but he would read a few scenes. And I do find him to be dazzling. I think he's going to retire after one more movie. I'm a chick, and so I guess I should be offended by his stuff. But like, I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is one of the masters. I think he's so brave. He actually really liked my dad. He had my dad audition for him. My dad wasn't even an actor, so that of course warms my heart. And he put 5 people from the Groundlings, which is a comedy improv group in Los Angeles, in Pulp Fiction because he's a secret comedy file. So he would come to the comedy improv shows all the time. And the guy that was the GIMP was a Groundling. Julia Sweeney, who played Harvey Keitel's girlfriend, was a groundling. She went on to be It's Pat on Saturday Night Live. Karen Mariam also in the little scene that I was in. There were 5 of us that got to be in Pulp Fiction, and it was wild.
That's crazy that you got to hear like these scenes just read to you in the middle of the night. It's like, yeah, are you up?
Yes.
Just call you on.
And you're
on the house
recognizing at the time that was incredible because his writing is like
Okay,
nobody
and
else.
another thing, if you really want to be a nerd, even then I was telling Clinton that I wanted to be famous, and he said, "Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do," because I was totally unknown. And I done some commercials maybe, but so he at the end credits it says Kathy Griffin as herself.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes.
Total unknown. Everybody was like, "Who the hell's Kathy Griffin and why is she playing herself?" I was like, "Someday you'll all be sorry."
But just to be nerdy about it, you're not playing yourself. That's not you. That's not what you would say in that situation.
No, it's totally me. I would totally go to court if I saw a crime like that. I'm a citizen activist. I'm Team Vic.
Team Vic. She got her little tea latte right there.
That's amazing, Kathy. You have a whole spirit, I feel, where you're like, I will say anything to anyone. I am fearless. And I feel like that was there before you started doing comedy. Where is that mom? Is that dad? Is that, being little? Like where does that come from to develop that fighting, fearless spirit?
It's all the classic stuff. It's that my mom was the one who didn't want me to ever talk this way. My dad was the one that said, fuck them if they can't take a joke. Who cares how many times you get fired, long as you feel good about it. Something I still live by. It was being bullied. I went to Catholic school. Those fucking nuns, they watched me get jumped twice. Not once, twice. And I mean jumped.
Like, seriously?
Girls like kicking me in the ribs. Those Mary Stetler, I have not forgotten about you, Mary Stetler. If you're out there watching this, I have not forgiven you. And so the nuns were like having a ciggy, like, oh well, it's Griffin's turn in the barrel. I mean,
it's Griffin's turn in the barrel. So
that's crazy.
Two nuns.
So your experiences in Catholic school made you feel like I will just say whatever I want. I don't care.
Yes, because it didn't get me unjumped to be nice. I still tried to be nice to Mary Stetler. She wasn't having it.
That's hilarious. It's like being nice didn't help, so I might as well say whatever the hell I want. That makes sense.
My Catholic school was so corrupt, it actually closed. It was called St. Bernardine's in Forest Park, Illinois. It's gone now. Like, I didn't even know you could take a whole parish and the Catholic school that went with it and just make it vanish. Like, I actually thought that would be too embarrassing for the Archdiocese of Chicago or some shit. No, St. Bernardine's is just gone.
Hey, the Catholic Church does that all the time.
When you were first really blowing up and reaching your zenith, there was a vibe of she's dangerous because she's going to come out. She'll say anything about anyone. It was something that we had kind of seen with Joan Rivers, but you kind of took it further of like, I'm talking about all of you will get it here tonight. And
I'm lifting the veil. I'm taking you behind the scenes.
Yes. And other comics are just doing jokes and you're like, no, I'm saying dangerous shit. That was the vibe. That was incredible.
Also, I don't make stuff up. Like, I don't say like conceptual stuff. Like, I got a lot of guy comics are like, what if Lincoln worked at the Mall of America? Like, that just was never interesting to me. But I was like, you're not going to believe what happens on this show I'm on called Suddenly Susan with Brooke Shields when Andre Agassi visits the set and you tease him about his mullet. Turns out he can't stand it. And he tried to get me to stop swearing. And I was like, who the fuck are you? You play tennis. I'm Kathy fucking Griffin. Well, he didn't think that was funny.
Hey, did you actually get in trouble for the stuff you say? Like, are you walking around Hollywood and people are like, what the fuck? You can't come to this party. I'm mad at him, like Matt Lauer or somebody's running up on you in the street. Like, how could you have said that about me?
Okay, fuck Matt Lauer, by the way, and
Fuck
the horse
Matt
is
Lauer for sure, but
so that
just
guy can
people in
suck my
general.
dick
Like,
while we're making lists. Matt fucking Lauer, give me a break. God, talk about the chairman of the fucking Navy Club for long enough. He thinks he's getting back. He's not getting back on my watch. You don't have a button to come back. Anyway,
I don't even know why
see,
that
that's
name came out, but just
like when I was
I envision you. I envision you rolling around LA, and occasionally, like, celebrities are like, Kathy, what the fuck? Why would you say that about me?
well, usually they just avoid me. So it's just a lot of looking over my head or kind of acting like they don't see me. I get a lot of confrontations. I have had many letters from celebrities saying we're not friends anymore. Then I got to reel them back in and I got to
Who
convince them, like,
who
actually,
said
this
they
Listen,
don't want to be friends anymore?
Well, I just come out of a fight with Sharon Stone. So I have this story in my current, I only have 7 shows left on my tour, the Kathy Griffin, My Life on the PTSD List tour. And I have a story about good old Stoney. Now, you got to make fun of her because she's tall and blonde and gorgeous and perfect. So fuck her. So I feel she's fair game. So I tell a story about one time when I went to her house, not one time, recently. I went to her house because I just got divorced and I'm heartbroken and the whole thing. And so I go to her house, and I'm not going to tell you the story, but it's actually a charming story about her. But just because she heard that she's in my act, she wrote me a letter and she said, friends don't do this to each other. And I go, Stoney, I'll tell you what, I'm going to be at the Wiltern in Los Angeles. I'll be at Carnegie Hall in New York. You come to one of those shows, and if you don't like the story, I'll take it out, I promise. And I've never said that. But she just didn't want to come. And so I was like, well, then you'd rather just bitch. But then I ran into her about 3 weeks ago, and in Sharon Stone form, she burst into tears and she goes, I'm sorry. And I go, that's what I love about you. You've burst into tears. You just walked in. The fucking gate just closed. Like, I love these celebrities that don't get what's funny about themselves. And that's why I tend not to really make fun of comedians. Well, besides Matt Rife, who couldn't write a joke and was dependent on it, but luckily those other two for him, allegedly. But I typically will make fun of a more serious person because of obvious reasons. They're easier to make fun of. But I'm not going to do a chunk in my act about a legitimately funny sitcom or a legitimately funny movie. But I am at the point now where I've kind of met like almost everybody. Like, I'm not saying they like me, that's for sure. And it could have just been a handshake, but I have like endless material because I've now not only met almost everybody, many of my idols, if not all, but it's like I kind of refuse to die. So it's kind of around where they have to deal with my shit. Like, one time I ran into the great Sally Field after she had lost the Oscar for Abraham Lincoln, where she played Mary Todd Lincoln, and she should have won. Run into her at the after party, and of all people, Al Roker is shoving a microphone in her face about how does she feel. And I've lost more than awards that I've won, obviously, like anybody. And it feels like shit. You're supposed to smile and go yay for the other person, but I fucking hate that other person who won. I was robbed every time. So I run into the great Sally. She's trying to get away from Al Roker. She lifts up the skirt of her dress, like, because it was, bulgy. And she turns to me. I go, hi, Sally. And she goes, Kathy Griffin, of all people. And she just walked away. And that to me encapsulates it. And I don't know her well, but I've met her a few times. And all I was going to tell her was that she was amazing. But like, I love her just not even blinking and going, Kathy Griffin, of all people. And she was out of there.
I love that story so much. I sense that there is a parallel between Drake and Matt Rife. Like, is he the Drake of comedy in that successful? You've mentioned a couple times, ghostwriters, part of why we don't like Drake. He doesn't really write his
Just
stuff.
be honest, unless you're honest about it. If you're honest about it, then use all the writers you want. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But is Matt Rife the Drake of comedy?
Well, I don't even know Drake that well to say that, but I can say that, in my opinion, if in fact Matt Rife has two spotters go out into the audience before every show and tell him what row and seat number somebody is sitting at with a wacky top or a kooky hat or something that he can make a hacky joke about. And then they go backstage and they write the jokes. And then Rife goes out there and acts like he's just noticing that person with his naked eye. I would say, as a professional comedian, that is cheating.
That's what they say that he's doing. Like, he's over here prepping the jokes. Like, so someone's opening up for him, and then he has two people in the crowd basically looking for
Watching
people
the
and
crowd.
prepping the jokes for what his set. And that's how he does his crowd work.
Well, I'm such an asshole. I don't even believe in openers. I think even that's cheating. I do 2 hours myself. I write every word. Don't be late. And openers there's two schools of thought. I also think if you're big enough, like if you're like a Chelsea Handler or an Amy Schumer, you should have openers who should be girls that you're forwarding. So that part I
Right.
get.
Yeah.
Cat Williams has like 9 openers because he really believes in actually having openers that are funnier than he is. Although I don't think that's possible. I think Cat's the most genius comedian I've ever met. I don't even know if he could explain why he's so
Should meet
genius.
my friend Dave.
What?
I raised you, Dave Chappelle, most genius comedian you've ever met.
That's so apples and oranges. I mean, they're both goats, but I gotta have a special place in my heart for Cat because he also has gotten in trouble many times, and he and I both have been portrayed on SNL multiple times without being asked to host. Like there's a certain bitterness that we share. We were going to try to do a show together called Dumpster Fire the day Trump was elected, the first go around. But God, the word goat is so hard with comedy. But I've known David since he was 18. He's an absolute genius. The last time I saw Dave's entire show, I felt like it was going to church, and I'm an atheist, but even still, I felt like I was in a church. But what Cat does, I would liken more to an Andy Kaufman, who, not that Cat's playing a character. I mean, Pit Chronicles is sort of a character, but like he's so brilliant. I would say he is more. Oh, this is going to come out wrong. I love them both. I would say Cat is more intellectually curious than Dave. And Dave is more, he can naturally access what he's really good at. But, I have moments from both that I am thinking of, bits in their head right now in my head of theirs.
I would think the reverse almost. Like I would think that Dave is intellectually curious, and Cat is just naturally accessing his comedic like talents and this wealth of knowledge of comedy too. You could tell Cat Williams is like a comic, right? It seems more.
Yeah, but he's also interested in everything. Like there's very little that Cat's not interested in. And I don't know that about Dave. I could be wrong. I haven't talked to Dave since COVID.
Let me throw one idea out at you, Kathy. Nobody can do Cat's act because it totally relies on the cat vibe, right?
Agreed.
Like the whole cat nest. Like
by the way, that's what makes.
He doesn't even really need jokes because there's a cat vibe that makes us all laugh. And he just says hello and we start laughing. Right. Dave has that also, but he also has jokes. So Kathy could do 5 or 10 minutes of Chappelle jokes and kill because he's writing quality jokes. And I think this is something I come back to a lot. I think that among comedians, there's phone book comedians and there's material comedians. And like, Bernie Mac is a phone book comedian in that he could just read the phone book and make you laugh. Chris Rock is a material comedian in that he
He's a
manicures and curates
craftsman. He's a craftsman.
He's a craftsman, like a
Yeah.
Seinfeld, and like
Yeah.
every word and pause is manicured to where
Yeah.
he's going to do his thing and it's going to work because his material is perfect. And Chappelle is a little
Yeah.
of both. But I think you're a phone book comedian. Do you agree?
I hope so, but I also have a confession, which one thing that's been a real challenge for me that I admit is a shortcoming. I really am not good at reading other people's material. Like, I'll tell you, my heart goes out to every host of an award show. So, like, when Joe Coy took that hit for the Globes, I felt it was unfair because I know those writers and they're older white guys and they're very good at writing what they do and the Kennedy Center honors and it's that crowd. But Joe does something very different and he's playing stadiums. And also, if you were to write the Golden Globes for Kathy Griffin and Tina Fey instead of Amy Poehler and Tina Fey, I admit I would not be able to do that because I've been doing it this way for so many decades. And like I said, 21 specials, about to do my 22nd. I am not good at reading other people's material. So I can't even answer the question because besides the obvious reasons, me trying to do a Dave joke or a cat joke, it would be different even the way I would describe it because I would describe the Dave joke by the words. But if I'm going to describe a cat bit, I got to have the stool. I got to be sliding across the stage. Like they just do something so different. And I don't even know if they're friendly. I think they're friendly. I know they've seen each other.
They are. I'm sure they are. Wait, the Joe
there's
Coy moment is an
a lot of
interesting
competition
thing.
in stand up as well.
The Joe Coy moment is an interesting thing too, because part of what really happened there is that he started to bomb in a situation where the public at that level, like millions of people watching, you almost never see a comic bombing when at that level, like at a show.
Yes.
And he didn't know how to handle it. And we saw him getting nervous and we heard him blame the writers. And I felt like these are cardinal sins that you do not do. When you get into trouble, you don't do that sort of stuff.
No, because I'm the writer. And so I have to just blame myself and move on to the next joke. The other thing I will say that's a trend now that I don't care for at all as a comic, especially a comic who sometimes makes fun of celebrities, is I didn't like the cutaway to Taylor Swift and Selena Gomez giving an eye roll while sipping a wine in a $250,000 dress. Like, I don't like that trend at all. And it kind of started with Ricky Gervais when he would go farther than hosts had gone before, and they kind of took it on the chin. But I get nervous just as a viewer watching these folks, most of them are my friends, host everything from Kimmel hosting the Oscars to, back in the day, the VMAs. Like, Teray, do you remember when Rock used to host the VMAs? I mean, he had a joke in there that would never fly. He was like, ladies and gentlemen, they're the Spice Girls. Take a look at them. They won't be here next year. Like, right. I love that joke to this day. But today you would get 5 Spice Girls going, and then all the press would be, he's no longer funny, he's just mean. That's a funny joke. It's a fair joke. The Spice Girls are fine.
I'm glad you brought up Ricky Gervais because I think he's like, he's kind of your brother. He's kind of like on the same side of the street of you as far as like attacking other celebrities and saying it's not really fucking you're a celebrity. Who cares? Right? Like you guys are kind of kindred spirits.
He also talks endlessly about his fuck you money from The Office, which I don't have. I have like F you money, but I don't have fuck you money. But he leans on that a lot. Like, I don't care if you're laughing now because I own The Office, which is the only thing. And also he dumped me after the Trump head picture. So I, of course, have a personal like bitch claim against him. And I lose respect immediately for any comic who dumped me after the Trump head picture, which, by the way, is 97% of comics. And yet, I agree, we were friends before that. He was my comedy brother. He came to my house. I went to his. And then that Trump picture made it all go bye-bye.
When you say, I'm sorry that happened. When you talk about fuck you money, the Chappelle line about that is seared into my brain that I can't not think about. That Jay-Z got
What is
fuck you money and Beyonce got no fuck you money.
Okay, that was also a Rock joke because Rock said on one of his specials, and then he repeated it on Oprah because Oprah pulled one of her, well, normally I don't like jokes about myself, but I'll allow this one. And he said, Rock said in one of his specials, Oprah has money, Bill Gates has wealth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah.
Not saying anybody stole. I'm just saying
No, there's lots of
that
ways to talk
happened.
about it. Chappelle had a bit
Yes,
about
both
Chappelle had a
true,
bit
both
about that when
valid.
he came back from South Africa about the real, like most white people don't have money. Like the whites with the real money, when you get to meet them, then you see what's really going on. Like,
Yeah. Well, that's why I don't go to Mark Bennett's house, even though he lives 2 blocks.
but part of the point that I was getting at before was I think you're one of those people who could read the phone book and make it funny, and a lot of
Oh my
comics
God,
can't do
what a
that.
compliment. Thank you. That is such a compliment. That's what I try to do because my act isn't all jokes, it's stories. As your and my friend Sarah Silverman would say, I'm really more of a raconteur, and it's jokes within stories. But I'm not afraid of some torque. I'll set up a joke for 3-4 minutes, which is antithetical to sort of the standard thing that people say, like you should get a laugh every 7 seconds. I'm too
Yeah.
busy to be counting to 7 during my fucking act for 2
That's a
hours.
thing?
Yes.
That's the thing. People count
Yeah.
to
I don't
7.
know. I've always been a
You
fan of the storyteller. Like I'm a huge comic fan, and like it's like a fake dream of mine to be a comedian. I'm actually just a rapper that failed at being a comedian. So what? So but I think about it, and I'm like, if you're not telling stories, what does it matter? It doesn't feel like it hits like your soul or the gut of the audience if I'm not telling a story, because I think your personality should make people laugh. And if you have the ability to write jokes like a punchline, it comes in there, but it's really about, does this narrative hit you? You know what I'm trying to say? And how do I make it funny?
Yes. Okay. So let me flip the question on you because number one, I agree with you. I feel like when I go to see a comic, it's just my thing. I want to feel like I got to know them a little bit by the end of the show.
Yes.
And I guess
Yes.
it shouldn't matter. But like the
It
last
does
time
matter.
I saw it,
Nah.
I was like, I don't feel like I know Ellen any better. Like she talked about parallel parking and raising chickens. I kind of want to know the person a little. But when it comes to Kendrick and Drake, do you feel that one of them is more effective at letting their audience actually get to know them, or do you think it doesn't matter?
Torre, you can't answer
100%.
this question. Torre can't answer this question. He's not allowed to.
We've talked about this a bunch. Go ahead, Green. You take it.
Yeah, we've had this conversation a million times. It's like all we
It's a
talk
fantastic
about.
question.
But it's a great question.
It's a great question.
Yeah, the great question. Yes, Kendrick's looked at as this like political writer and this revolutionary artist and all these things because he puts those things in his music. But at the core of who Kendrick is somebody trying to find themselves and somebody analyzing the world through themselves. He doesn't tell you, yo, let's go fight the power, let's do this, and you should be doing this and you should be doing that, which people think is preachy type of music. He's telling you, this is what I went through. Like, I went to South Africa. This is him in a song. He says, I went to South Africa, I met a person, I saw the difference between the Xhosa people and the Zulu people, and it reminded me of the people in LA and how that worked, and now I see how we're all connected. That's his own anecdotal story.
On his last album, he had a song about was it his uncle who transitioned to be a woman?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I mean, like, who talks about that in hip hop? Nobody. This is his
And
personal life.
And it's his
Go ahead.
personal
Just
life.
take it down.
Yeah. So
Drake does not talk about and reveal himself in an authentic way
in that way, yeah.
anywhere near Kendrick.
It's more so about what
Okay.
he's okay with. How's he okay with people seeing? Because Drake's always been seen as an emotional artist, but it's always about how. And at the time when he was doing that, and when he was younger, it was vulnerable because it was like, even if these were like not correct thoughts, like these are him thinking about things like everything's everyone else's fault. Like that girl did me wrong, and I don't know why this happened, but there were his actual personal views at that time. It's how he felt. So he was expressing himself.
Hold on. Let me just sharpen that a little bit, Kathy. If we talk about R&B, and you know they're quite often talking about romantic love, Drake lived in this space of the situationship, and he was talking about that emotional vibe and the details of that, and and stuff like she goes to the bathroom and I check her phone to see if she's texting other guys, like shit like that, and
nobody was talking about that.
When he was in his 20s or early 30s, it was fine because that seemed to be where he was in life. But now he's almost 40 and he's still in that same vibe. And now it seems freaking weird. And it's like, oh, you just wanted to talk about situationships rather than talk about your real life.
And just, if I can speak for my entire gender, we all wanted him to be nicer to Rihanna, and we feel very protective of her.
You should.
Like, we don't want a situation with her and Drake. And when she won that award, and he went up and said, I've been in love with this woman my whole life. We thought a proposal was coming. We thought she was the new Bachelorette. And so then I saw the picture on Kendrick's album with his wife or baby. I think he has 2 kids now. And that looked more authentic to me.
And that's what people are looking for nowadays. Not only in hip hop, we're looking for that in everything.
Tell us a comment. I'm only interested in people's personal lives.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, my God, does anyone have a cuter family than your ex-boyfriend Rocky? I mean, those children are gorgeous. They'll all 4 of them. Unbelievable.
Ex-boyfriend, not ex-boyfriend.
Is that wrong? Was that wrong? Did I say something wrong?
Hilarious. But the comedy being a narrative thing, hip hop being a narrative thing, being authentic, such important freaking things to do.
And there's a real marriage between comedy and music that a lot of people don't understand. But the reason I know so many musicians and rappers included, is because of the charity circuit. So even though I'm on the D list, no matter what, they always need a comic to host the charity. You need a pretty girl from a TV show. You need a pretty girl from a movie, or you need like a tough guy movie star. You need a musical act, and then you need somebody unusual to do the auction. And so that's really how I've met most of the A-listers that I've met. And so when it came time for me to have a talk show on Bravo, just called Kathy, you can see it on Apple. I think it's even free. And I found a tape of Danny Boy and ASAP talking about how they both wanted to fuck me because I have a fatty. And I thought that tape was really funny. So I played it on the show. And that's how I got them to come on the show. And then, of course, the thing that touched me the most was how nice those guys were to my mom, who was like 94 at the time. And she was just like, so you boys make music? That's such a hard business. Good for you. I hope you have all the hit records you can stand. And they were like, thank you, ma'am. And then she was drunk all the time. So then she would just say something drunk. And like the fries shake or like something totally inappropriate. And they laughed. And so, of course, then they both won me over.
That's a dope story.
Oh, I also was in a 4-way love triangle with Schoolboy Q for a while.
Who were the other 2 people? Who were the other 2 people?
Schoolboy Q, Danny Brown, and ASAP Rocky.
And Kathy Griffin, yes.
Yeah. and
this can be looked up on the World Wide Web. I'm telling you. I can't help it.
You've never seen those interviews before, Torre?
No, I've seen some of the interviews. I just didn't know that you were saying you guys were in a 4-way. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's ephemeral. It's not a literal one, but I haunt them. Let's just put it that way.
Did you ever know Paul Mooney?
Of course.
Did you take inspiration or less? Because he's one of the greatest black comics who was around in your time.
Well, groundbreaking. I didn't know him because it was more toward the end of his life, but he always looked the same, by the way. And
Yep.
he always had on his skull cap, and he was always honest. And I don't even want to use the term brutally honest because I just like honest better. And that's really what I loved about him is there wasn't a question you could ask him that he wouldn't give you an honest answer about. And he really, really was gracious about talking about race with me. As a guy that's had to talk about race way too much than he probably ever thought he would have to, he would bring it up. And, he said to me one time, I don't dislike white people. I'm scared of white people. And I remember that obviously to this day. And I think it was in his act, which is fine. But, I saw him as a true inspiration. And also, I admired that he always kept his outsider status, whether he was writing for Pryor and Pryor was lifting him up. He still had his street cred, his outsider status, which, of course, is something I have a soft spot for as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also love Raw Genius, and he was a raw genius.
Fire. Love Paul Mooney.
Kathy, I'm so honored that you came and spent some of your time with us today. It is so fun to talk to you and talk through all these issues.
I'm just glad we settled that beef. Phew.
It's all
I don't
over.
think Drake's ever going to let it go.
Is it? Well, we need to all let it go, and then everyone else will let it go. That's what.
Yeah.
Game over, right? Game over.
If you say so.
Kathy, thank you so much. We appreciate you. They're going to watch your YouTube show too.
Yes, Kathy Griffin, talk your head off. I got the title right. All right, thank you guys. Thanks for being so nice to me. I appreciate it.
No,
Thank you, honey.
so
We love you.
much.
Appreciate you.
Mwah, mwah.